Hey gang, we are in Stockton, California, but no, this is not a Christmas special. We are at the Haggin Museum here. Look at this old blacksmith shop. Isn't that beautiful? We are here actually to see a infamous steamer trunk. A steamer trunk where this evil woman, a black widow, stuffed her husband, who weighed about 250 pounds. I think he wasn't that tall, but when you see this trunk, you're just gonna say, how in the heck did she stuff him in this trunk? Now after this, we're gonna go to the cemetery and we're gonna go to her unmarked grave, where I'm gonna tell you the story, but we're gonna start out because they have the trunk here. And it still has the blood all over it. Check that out. Well, this is the woman, Emma LeDoux, quite infamous. And as I look at the trunk, you can just see all the blood splatter. Now, he was crunched in here so hard that, look at, there's like a fabric, it's embedded in the fabric. Look at all the blood. Now this trunk is probably no more than 20 inches deep, if that much, in this direction, maybe. And I'm gonna say it's not even, it's probably about 28 inches in this direction. I don't know, maybe 18 inches deep, how you could fit a 250 pound man in this. And just look at that, all the blood is still here. Actually, the trunk sat in a, let's go down the hall here, I'll show you. The county jail was this building right here. And it actually sat in there until I think the 1960s. And they found it, and then I don't know if they knew what they had, but then they came here to the museum and they had it stored in this room right here. And somebody here found it and looked up the story, and here it sits, and it's not even behind glass. Look at this, guys. So, okay, we're gonna go to the cemetery right now. We're gonna shoot down to Bakersfield. We're gonna try to find her grave. She's unmarked. I'm gonna tell you the story of the infamous Black Widow of 1906, Emma LeDoux. All right, let's go. She was the Black Widow of 1906. Of course, there were a lot of Black Widows in history, but 1906 was her year to be the Black Widow of the Year. And she was quite a piece of work. Wait till you hear the story. She just would not quit. Well, let's take a walk, some interesting graves here. It's not a long walk, so let's get on with it and talk about the life of Miss Emma Cole. She was born. She was born in Amador County, September 10th, 1875 in Pine Grove. Her parents, Thomas Jefferson Cole and Mary Ann Gardner. Now the family moved to Oregon, as people say Oregon. I say Oregon. I'm from the Midwest. Don't make fun of me. She was 3 years old when they came back here in 1888. Now, what would start the pattern of a long pattern, she didn't waste any time. When she was 16 years old, she got married for the first time. And his name was Charles Barrett. It was 1891. And, you know, the pattern would it's just would just get right underway here. I mean, not long after her marriage, this guy would die under mysterious circumstances. She would say, oh, he was killed by bandits. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But that was her story, and she was sticking with it. And she would waste no time trying to find another husband. And she had lots of men that were apparently after her. Next, it would be a minor, 1902, William Williams. And 1902 would be the year that he died of gastroenteritis. Folks, that's the stomach flu, basically. Shouldn't die from the stomach flu, stomach infection, but he did. Apparently, they did some tests and they suspected that nitric acid poisoning may have come into play, but where would that have come from? Emma didn't know. But what she did know was she was the beneficiary of a nice insurance policy of $4,000, which she promptly claimed after he died. Well, they did suspect her, but there was not enough evidence. And it wasn't more than a few months after his death, Emma married a man named Albert McVicar. And poor Albert, he was totally in love with her. And she married him probably for the money. She did not love him. And she courted around. And then she met another guy while she was married to him. So she's like, I've got to get divorced from this guy. So they separated. She left. But they actually didn't get divorced. And again, Emma was moving at a pretty high rate of speed. It was in August of 1905 that she married her fourth husband before getting divorced to Jean LeDoux. That's where the last name comes from. Of course, she didn't tell him that she was still married to Albert McVicar. She had now committed bigamy, right? So now on March 11th, 1906, interestingly, Emma accidentally ran into Albert, who she was still married to. Of course, she didn't tell him about her next marriage to Jean LeDoux, and they would end up reconciling. Why would she reconcile with him? Well, she had a master plan. An evil master plan. And she would start by buying some cyanide. Just under 2 weeks later, it was March 24th, 1906, Albert's body was found in a steamer trunk. Where? At Stockton train station. Right at the train depot. They immediately traced the trunk to Emma. She had purchased it earlier at a store in Stockton, while she and Albert were staying in town there at the hotel. Now, she had ended up poisoning Albert with the cyanide, of course, stuffed him in the trunk. Some say it was morphine, but she had beat him up, apparently while he was half conscious, stuffed him in the trunk while he was still alive. And they figured out he died in the trunk. Now, she hired someone to take the trunk to the train depot and gave orders to have it shipped to Jamestown, California. But she forgot to put a tag on the trunk as she took a train up to San Francisco. Not too smart. So what happens? Well, the trunk's just sitting there on the train platform, right? And it smells really bad. So the guy who's in charge of baggage, he's like, hey, this is weird. And this thing stinks. Let's open it up. Well, they have to get a search warrant. So police are called. They get a warrant. they open the trunk and find the rotting body. So let's get Emma. Let's find Emma. So the hunt begins. They can't find her at first. The sheriff of Stockton, along with a constable from Arlington, found her down south near LA now. She was at the Arlington Hotel in Arlington, California. And when they approached her, and they said, they really didn't have to say anything. She just looked at them and said, "I know what you want with me, and I will go with you." And she did. Of course, there would be a trial, but it had to be postponed because of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, very famous, infamous event. But she was finally tried and then convicted of first-degree murder. And she was sentenced to hang. She would be the first woman to receive a death sentence in the state of California. And her hanging was scheduled for October 19th at San Quentin. But she got lucky. Many felt sorry for her. She got a stay of execution. She stayed in jail until 1909, and then in 1910, she got a new trial. She was in poor health, and she just decided to plead guilty. So she ended up getting sentenced to life imprisonment and was transferred there to San Quentin. She served 10 years before being paroled in 1920, only 10 years. Now, what's funny is, after serving that time, on April 21st, 1931, she had some parole violations, and she was sent back to prison. What do you think she was doing? Well, she was caught illegally selling the property of her late post-prison husband, number 5, a Mr. Crackbon, whom it is believed that she murdered. Yeah, she just kept going. So that sent her back to prison for good. So she spent the rest of her life in prison. And there she was forgotten. She was forgotten. She died there July 6, 1941, just months before the U.S. entered the war, before Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing us into World War II. Well, that's the story of old Emma. They buried her here with no fanfare and probably no one. Almost like a pauper's grave. Not sure who paid for it, but many times they're buried at the prison cemetery, but not in this case. She was buried here. So, searched for her grave, and I found it with a lot of help from the gang here. Thank you, folks at Union Cemetery. I kind of assumed that she would not have a gravestone. I would, given that everyone hated her. But she should not be forgotten, because it's quite the story. She is buried right here. Buried right here next to Maria Espetia. right here. No rose for you, girl. One of the bad women of the early 20th century. All right, guys, I am headed out of here. Hope you liked the story. So many interesting pictures of her. Ooh, can you imagine if you fell into her trap, her web? Anyway, all right, heading north. Bye-bye to you. All right, see you on the next one, guys.